In the meantime, unfortunately, I used the word in my paper in Science, artificial biosphere, to describe these possible alien activities, a biosphere just being an inhabited region. And I called it an artificial biosphere as being something that would radiate in the infrared band. And the science fiction writers got hold of this phrase and imagined it then to be a spherical, rigid object, and the aliens would be living on some kind of artificial shell, a rigid structure surrounding a star, which wasn't exactly what I had in mind. But in any case, that's become then a favorite object of science fiction writers. They call it the Dyson Sphere.
Since the dawn of humanity, the stars have been our anchors. Fixed, eternal, immortal, ancient astronomers mapped civilizations by them. Modern satellites depend on them. We built our understanding of the universe on a silent assumption: once a star shines, it remains forever. But a terrifying technical error has emerged in our cosmic maps. When astronomers compared sky surveys from the 1950s with modern digital data, they uncovered a nightmare. A significant number of stars are simply no longer there. No supernova explosions, no expanding debris clouds, no fading afterglow vanishing into the dark. Just emptiness. They didn't collapse in any visible way. They didn't flare up. They left no final message. They were, quite simply, erased. The official term is transient objects, a technical label, clean, harmless. But behind that label lies a question no one dares to ponder for too long. What kind of process can neutralize a star without leaving a single scar? Imagine a colossal structure that doesn't just orbit a star, it repurposes it. Not a solid shell, not a ring, but a swarm, millions, perhaps billions, of autonomous units surrounding a sun, capturing every photon, every unit of energy. A civilization that doesn't wait for power, they harvest it. And the dark patches we see, that might not be empty space. That could be the shadow of evolution. What's more unsettling isn't that stars have vanished. It's that the sky didn't react. No signal. No warning. No trace. If something out there has finished processing those star systems, what are we actually looking at when we admire our own sun? And who is next on the sequence? Saturn, Mercury, or us? We aren't looking at a natural sky anymore. We are looking at a celestial construction site. Freeman Dyson wasn't just dreaming of fiction, he was following the cold laws of thermodynamics. Energy doesn't simply vanish, it transforms. If a civilization surrounds their star with billions of collectors, the light isn't destroyed. It is consumed. And what the human eye perceives as darkness, physics identifies as a trace. This is the infrared signature. Any structure absorbing stellar energy must radiate heat back into space. However, this energy doesn't return as visible light, it returns as heat, specifically infrared radiation. To our eyes, the star dims or even vanishes, but under an infrared lens, it begins to glow with a systematic, artificial intensity. For decades, researchers have quietly scoured sky maps for this fingerprint. And this is where the truth becomes unsettling. Project Vasco vanishing and appearing sources during a century of observations. When scientists compared records from the 1950s with modern data from the Gaia and WESI satellites, They uncovered approximately 100 stars that had disappeared without explanation. In astronomy, we call this infrared excess. These targets appear normal, yet they emit far more heat than their size or age should allow. Skeptics cling to the cosmic dust hypothesis, but dust cannot explain why a star would dim in just a few decades, an impossibly short interval compared to a celestial body's billion-year life cycle. By 2025, the evidence shifted from anomaly to challenge. Several candidate stars match Dyson's profile so perfectly that natural explanations have reached a breaking point. Yet, you won't see a breaking news bulletin on television, only dry scientific papers, closed-door discussions, buried data tables. No agency is ready to confirm the existence of a star-scale engine. They treat these infrared anomalies as inconveniences, numbers hidden in appendices, because numbers don't create trends. But the quiet sky you grew up with is actually a misdirection. The lights are being extinguished, one, by something that has evolved beyond the need for planets. If these civilizations are so advanced, why are they hiding in the infrared spectrum? Perhaps they aren't hiding at all. We are simply looking at the exhaust of a colossal machine that views this entire galaxy as a battery. And if that energy is being transmitted somewhere, we must ask, what are they building with all that fire? Do you believe in the eternity of the night sky? Or are we merely staring at an aging curtain that is slowly being dismantled? Let us look back to 2019, when a project named Vasco opened a dark chapter in modern astronomy. By cross-referencing military film plates from the 1950s with today's satellite data, a haunting gap emerged. Over 100 luminous entities had evaporated. No trace, no cosmic ash, a technical glitch, dust on the lens, or simply degraded silver halides on old film. These are the safest explanations we have. But in the shadows of the laboratories, a logical nightmare is taking shape. If this isn't human error, then what is the universe trying to hide from us? Standard astrophysics teaches us that stars never vanish in the blink of an eye. They require billions of years to fade. Witnessing hundreds of stars disappear in less than a single human lifetime, it's like looking at a mountain range and watching it dissolve after a rainstorm. NASA mentions failed supernova, stars that collapse into black holes without an explosion. It's a perfect hypothesis on paper, and it sounds very scientific, but such cases are rare enough to count on one hand. Finding 100 such entities simultaneously is a statistical impossibility. This is no longer a realm where conventional science can provide all the answers. Are we observing a natural process or a harvest beyond human comprehension? Let's consider a more profound hypothesis, the Dyson swarm. Not just a power station, but an evolutionary filter. When a civilization reaches type W on the Kardashev scale, they no longer seek our recognition. They build a light economy. Look at the pattern of these disappearances. They don't vanish randomly. They seem to be switched off in rows, in sequences, like a line of streetlights being retired. Could a massive cosmic infrastructure project have been completed right before our eyes, while we were still preoccupied with specks of dust. There is a brutal truth in the cosmos. Nothingness is the ultimate camouflage. A perfect Dyson swarm lets not a single photon escape. The emptiness we see is not an absence of life. It may be the evidence of absolute possession. The more advanced a civilization becomes, the quieter they turn. They don't speak to us, not because they don't exist, but because we haven't earned the status of a partner. We are merely bystanders in the hallway, watching the neighbor's lights go out. Perhaps NASA isn't hiding a secret at all. Perhaps they are just as unsettled as we are, struggling to use an archaic vocabulary to explain a new reality. They see vanishing light sources. I see something growing in the dark. The real question isn't where those stars went. It's this: if they need to harvest hundreds of suns for power, what is that colossal machine preparing for next? And who in this universe will be their next objective? Look at the Boötes void. 330 million light years of absolute nothingness. Mainstream physics calls it a gravitational anomaly, a place where matter simply chose not to go. But when you place the Boötes void alongside the missing star records of Project Vasco, a dark pattern emerges. This isn't a lack of matter. This is a claimed territory. Science loves the phrase statistical deviation. They tell you there should be 2,000 galaxies there, yet we only see 60. They say gravity pulled everything away. But there is a flaw: gravity is slow. It would take tens of billions of years to clear a void of that magnitude. What if those 940 missing galaxies never moved? What if they were simply extinguished? In the logic of Kardashev type to Thury engineering, a galaxy isn't just a collection of stars, it's a fuel reservoir. When you shroud every star in a Dyson swarm, the galaxy doesn't explode. It just stops emitting visible light. You aren't looking at a void. You are looking at a completed power grid. We are obsessed with loud, massive death stars from cinema. But the dark forest hypothesis suggests the opposite. In a universe where being seen means being destroyed, the ultimate survival strategy is invisibility. A Dyson swarm isn't just an energy collector. It's the perfect camouflage. It recycles every photon, every heat signature, rendering a star thermally stealthy to distant observers. While we scream into the darkness like lost children in a forest, the true masters of the universe sit in absolute silence, encased in cold carbon shells, watching us from the depths of the void. This is where we are being missiled. We assume evolution means becoming brighter and louder. The truth may be the opposite. Advanced physics does not leak energy. The vanishing stars in Vasco data and the voids on our maps are the only footprints a transcendent race leaves behind. We call the most populated regions of the universe empty, because we are still using 20th century eyes to judge 50,000-year-old technology. We are like an isolated tribe staring at a transoceanic fiber optic cable and calling it a strange vine. But there is something that even a perfect Dyson swarm cannot fully hide. A tiny error, an incredibly faint vibration in efficiency, that the James Webb Space Telescope is beginning to detect. The lights aren't just turning off, they are being regulated, and the coordinator is slowly revealing its shadow through faulty pixels in the data we still dismiss as cosmic background noise. The final horizon. The question is no longer whether they are there. It is this: once they have finished harvesting the Beau-Tess void, where will they look next? Science always begins with skepticism. It is the shield that protects us from the unknown. When a star vanishes, the official explanation is always dust. Dust obscuring the light, dust distorting the data. But when you strip away that mask, you find a harsher reality. Dust has become a universal excuse for impoverished explanations. They tell you that the 1950s photographic plates are riddled with technical errors, that the technology was too primitive to trust. But ask yourself, if that data was good enough to map galaxies and calculate planetary orbits, why does it suddenly fail only when a star disappears? This is how we are misled through artificial caution. We blame the equipment to evade a terrifying truth. Some objects do not follow the natural laws of evolution. Look at the data from NASA's WISE telescope. They search for infrared excess, the fingerprint of a Dyson swarm. The official stance: no definitive evidence found. But inconclusive does not mean non-existent. In deep dive reports, thousands of anomalous infrared sources await classification. Instead of calling them constructs of a civilization, they are labeled data artifacts. We are standing at a cosmic crime scene, but instead of tracing the culprit, we try to convince ourselves the bloodstains are just red paint. What is the hidden truth here? It is the fear of the establishment. If a Dyson swarm were confirmed, every textbook on physics and economics would become scrap paper. We would have to admit we are latecomers to a game that ended millions of years ago. Absence is not nothingness. Absence is a measurable number. And when that absence repeats systematically, it is no longer a technical glitch. It is a directive, a message that certain regions of space have been harvested, and we are merely picking up the leftover fragments of light. But there is an anomaly they cannot explain with dust or FIM errors. A non-uniform and current velocity to beyond something is beginning to regulate the energy flow of the nearest stars. World. In 1964, astronomer Nikolai Kardashev drew a power map for the cosmos. He didn't categorize civilizations by politics or religion, but by something far more primal: energy. A Type I civilization masters a planet, Type II masters a star, and Type III masters an entire galaxy. A Dyson swarm isn't just an engineering marvel, it's a passport to Type II status. It is the boundary between survival dependent on nature and commanding nature itself. Imagine this: when you control 100% of a star's output, you don't just light up cities. You control the climate. You manipulate orbits. You construct colossal artificial ecosystems. But behind the shadow of that power lies a brutal truth. Whoever holds the light decides which world is warmed and which world must freeze. In the universe, Energy is sovereignty. A Dyson swarm is not a peaceful construction project. It is an energy fortress. The disappearance of a star is the formal announcement of a territory that has been completely sealed off. We have deceived ourselves by expecting advanced civilizations to be loud with radio signals or brilliant lasers. The reality is, the highest form of engineering in the universe creates silence. A perfect machine does not leak energy. A perfect empire leaves no trace. The missing stars in the Vasco data are not accidents. They are evidence of absolute optimization. They aren't hiding from us. They have simply evolved to the point where their presence looks exactly like nothingness. We look up at the night sky and feel at peace because everything seems static. But that stillness is an illusion. Perhaps the stars are exactly where they've always been. They have simply been repurposed. We are not the masters of the solar system. We are merely uncontacted tribes staring at a house whose lights have been turned off. We call it darkness. They call it maximum output. Humanity currently sits at 0.73 on the Kardashev scale, still fumbling with coal and oil while those out there have begun harvesting the very soul of the cosmos. The truth about the Dyson swarm doesn't lie in what we see. It lies in what we don't see. Stop looking for strange lights. Start looking for the gaps. Because in a universe full of hunters, light is a waste, and darkness is the ultimate power. But there is one thing that keeps me from sleeping. In recent reports regarding the unexplained drop in solar radiation, what NASA calls an anomalous solar minimum, is that truly a natural phenomenon, or has their shell already begun to reach our borders? Have you ever wondered why Mercury has an unusually high metal density? Could it be the remains of a planet dismantled to build the first fragments of a grid that is now surrounding us? If you are drawn to the unsolved edges of the universe, subscribe. Because our next discovery won't be something that just turned on. It will be something that just went out.